The stars looked cold and distant through the viewport of the Korthax command ship. Admiral Zektar sat in his command throne, watching his fleet move through space like a school of predatory fish. 37 warships followed his lead, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering. The Korthax had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. No one challenged them anymore. The Admiral's scaled hands moved over the holographic display in front of him. The human colonies were just 3 systems away. Small settlements on the edge of space, barely worth noticing. But they had resources the Korthax needed. More importantly, they had refused to pay tribute. That could not be allowed. Status report, Zektar said. His voice sounded like grinding stone. All ships maintaining formation, Admiral, his second-in-command replied. Weapons charged. Shields at maximum. The humans won't know what hit them. Zektar showed his teeth in what his species considered a smile. Good. These humans think they can deny the Korthax Empire. They will learn their mistake. Hidden in the shadow of a dead moon, the UE's vengeance waited. The human warship was ugly by most standards. No smooth curves or elegant lines like the alien vessels. Just hard angles and weapon ports. It looked like what it was. A tool built for one purpose. Captain John Miller stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. He was not a tall man, but something about him made the space around him seem smaller. His crew worked at their stations without speaking. They had practiced this moment 100 times. How long until they reached the kill zone? Miller asked. Lieutenant Lisa Brown checked her screen. 7 minutes, Captain. They're right on schedule. Miller nodded. The Korthax were predictable. They always were. 3,000 years of dominance had made them lazy. They followed the same patterns, used the same tactics. They assumed everyone else in the galaxy was weaker than them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Stealth systems? Miller asked. Operating perfectly. Chief Engineer Robert Clark answered from his station. They have no idea we're here. The Vengeance's stealth technology was beyond anything the aliens had seen. It bent light and radiation around the ship, making it invisible to every known sensor. The Korthax fleet was flying blind, and they didn't even know it. Miller watched the alien ships on his tactical display. They were beautiful in their own way. Smooth hulls that seemed to flow like water. Weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. Shields that shimmered like soap bubbles. Very pretty. Very advanced, not very dead. All hands, this is the captain, Miller said into the ship's communication system. You know why we're here. The Korthax think they can take our colonies. They think. Humans are weak. Let's show them the truth. Battle stations. The bridge lights dimmed to combat red. Crew members double-checked their systems. In the weapons bay, Lieutenant Commander Eric Martinez ran his hands over the firing controls. He had been waiting for this moment for 2 years, ever since the Korthax destroyed the colony on New Eden. Railguns charged and ready, Martinez reported. Target solutions calculated. Miller looked at the countdown timer. 3 minutes. The Korthax fleet was entering the narrow passage between 2 asteroid fields. It was the only safe route to the human colonies. It was also a perfect trap. On the Korthax command ship, a junior officer frowned at his sensor screen. Admiral, I'm reading a strange energy signature. Zektar barely glanced at him. Define strange. I'm not sure, sir. It's very faint. Could be background radiation from the asteroids. Could be? The Admiral's voice carried a warning. In the Korthax fleet, uncertainty was not tolerated. It is background radiation, Admiral, the officer said quickly. Nothing to concern yourself with. Zektar returned his attention to the main display. The human colonies appeared as blue dots on the star map. Soon they would be red, indicating Korthax control. Everything was proceeding according to plan. 1 minute. Miller felt his heartbeat slow. This was the moment where everything changed. For 50 years, humanity had hidden its true capabilities. They let the galaxy think they were just another minor species, barely able to defend themselves. But humans had been busy. They had studied every alien technology they could find. They had improved on it. They had built weapons the galaxy had never imagined. Now it was time to use them. "Drop the cloak," Miller ordered. The vengeance shimmered into existence like a ghost becoming solid. For a single second, both fleets hung in space, frozen in surprise. And Miller gave the order that would echo through history. "Fire the railgun." Spoke with the voice of thunder. A solid metal slug, no bigger than a person's fist, accelerated to 90% the speed of light. It crossed the distance between the fleets in the blink of an eye. The first Korthax ship didn't have time to raise additional shields. The slug punched through its hull like paper, continued through the ship behind it, and buried itself in a third vessel. 3 ships died in less than a second. The Korthax fleet erupted into chaos. Alarms screamed. Officers shouted orders. Ships broke formation, trying to bring weapons to bear on an enemy that shouldn't exist. "Again," Miller said calmly. The second railgun shot took 2 more ships. They exploded in brilliant fireballs that lit up the darkness of space. Debris scattered in all directions. Escape pods launched desperately, their occupants fleeing the destruction. Admiral Ziktar gripped his command throne so hard his claws left marks. "What is happening? Where did that ship come from?" "Unknown vessel. Configuration not in our database," his tactical officer reported, voice shaking. "It appeared from nowhere. Our sensors couldn't detect it." "Impossible," Ziktar snarled. "All ships, concentrate fire on that vessel. Destroy it." The remaining Korthax ships turned their weapons on the vengeance. Plasma bolts and particle beams filled space with deadly light. But the human ship was already moving. Despite its blocky appearance, it danced through space like a boxer avoiding punches. Most shots missed entirely. The few that connected splashed harmlessly against advanced armor that seemed to drink in the energy. "Their weapons aren't penetrating." "Our hull," someone reported. Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Of course not. We designed this armor specifically to counter Korthax weapons. Return fire. All weapons free." The vengeance revealed its true nature. Weapon ports opened all along. Its hull, missiles launched in swarms. Laser batteries fired in precise patterns. Mass drivers hurled chunks of metal at incredible speeds. The human ship became a fortress of death, dealing destruction in every direction. More Korthax ships died. Their beautiful hulls cracked open. Like eggs, their advanced shields flickered and failed. Their proud crews screamed in terror as they realized the truth. They were completely outmatched. "Admiral, we've lost 12 ships," an officer cried. "Recommend immediate withdrawal." Ziktar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 12 of his finest warships destroyed by a single human vessel. It was impossible. The humans were primitive. Their technology was centuries behind the Korthax. This had to be a nightmare, but the explosions were real. The screens over the communication channels were real. The human warship carving through his fleet was terrifyingly real. How? He whispered. Commander Paul Davis studied the alien fleet's movements from his position at the tactical station. 25 Korthax ships remained, and they were finally starting to organize. Their formation shifted into a defensive sphere, each ship covering the others with overlapping fields of fire. It was a textbook response to an ambush. Davis had seen it in dozens of historical battles the Korthax had fought, which meant he knew exactly how to break it. "Captain, they're forming a standard Korthax defense pattern," Davis reported. "Just like we predicted." Miller nodded. They really don't know any other way to fight. 3,000 years of the same tactics makes our job easier. The Korthax ships opened fire again. This time, their attack was coordinated. Hundreds of plasma bolts converged on the Vengeance from every angle. The human ship's point defense systems worked overtime, shooting down the slower projectiles. The faster ones hit the hull and dissipated against the strange dark armor. Hull. Temperature rising, someone called out, but still well within tolerance. Let them waste their energy, Miller said. Davis, are the swarm units ready? Davis smiled. This was his favorite part. All drone systems show green, Captain. 20,000 units ready for deployment. 20,000? Ensign Amy Johnson looked up from her neural interface headset. I thought we only loaded 15,000. We made some last-minute additions. Davis explained. The new micro-drones from the Mars workshop. Each one is half the size of our standard units, but carries the same payload. Johnson's eyes lit up with excitement. She was the best drone pilot in the fleet, able to control thousands of units simultaneously through her neural link. The aliens had no idea what was coming. Deploy the swarm, Miller ordered. Ports opened all along the Vengeance's hull. What emerged looked like a cloud of metallic insects. Each drone was no bigger than a baseball, painted matte black to blend with space. They carried miniaturized fusion warheads, each capable of creating an explosion hot enough to melt through starship armor. The Korthax detected the swarm immediately. Their point defense guns swiveled to track the incoming threats. Laser beams and small projectiles filled space, trying to create a wall of death between the drones and the fleet. But the drones weren't flying in straight lines. Johnson's fingers danced over her control interface, her mind linked directly to the swarm through quantum entanglement. Each drone became an extension of her will. They ducked and weaved, spiraled and rolled. When one was destroyed, two more took its place in the formation. This is impossible, a Korthax weapons officer said, watching his screens in horror. No pilot could control this many units. They must be using artificial intelligence. He was wrong. It wasn't artificial intelligence. It was human intelligence, amplified by technology the Korthax had never imagined. Johnson's brain was processing thousands of data streams simultaneously, her neural implants allowing her to think faster than any normal human. To her, the battle seemed to slow down. Each drone moved exactly where she wanted it. The first drones reached the Korthax formation. They didn't attack the shields directly. Instead, they looked for weak points. Every shield had them, small. Gaps where sensor arrays poked through, or where weapon ports opened. The drones found these gaps and dove through. The explosion started small. A drone detonated against a sensor cluster here, a weapon not there. But each explosion created more gaps. More drones poured through. They attached themselves to hull plates like leeches, waiting for Johnson's command. All units in position, Johnson reported. Her voice sounded strange, distant. Her mind was spread across 20,000 viewpoints. Execute, Miller said. Johnson sent a single thought through the quantum link. Every drone detonated at once. The Korthax formation disappeared in a ball of white fire. When the light faded, 8 more ships were gone. Others drifted powerlessly, their hulls breached, atmosphere streaming into space. A few tried to maintain their defensive positions, but the formation was broken. Admiral Zektar watched his fleet die and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Real, primal fear that started in his stomach and spread through his body like ice water. Analysis of their technology, he demanded. How are they doing this? His science officer's scales had turned pale green with stress. Admiral, their weapons are based on principles we understand, but the execution is beyond anything in our database. The armor appears to be some kind of programmable matter that redistributes energy. The drones use quantum entanglement for communication, and their main ship's power signature suggests they're using contained singularities for energy generation. Singularities? That's impossible. The power requirements alone would need a ship 10 times that size. I know, Admiral. But the readings don't lie. They've miniaturized technologies we can barely create in laboratory conditions. Zektar felt his worldview crumbling. The Korthax were the most advanced race in known space. Their technology was the result of millennia of development. How could humans, who had only achieved faster-than-light travel a century ago, surpass them so completely? On the Vengeance, Chief Engineer Robert Clark monitored the ship's systems with pride. Everything was performing beyond specifications. The contained micro-singularities that powered the ship hummed with barely restrained energy. Each one was no bigger than a marble, but contained the mass of a small moon, compressed to the edge of becoming a black hole. Power systems optimal, Clark reported. We could maintain this level of combat for days. We won't need days, Miller said. He was watching the Korthax try to retreat. Several ships had turned away from the battle, accelerating toward the edge of the system. Susan, are the gravity mines in place? Lieutenant Commander Susan White looked up from her station. Deployed them before the battle started, sir. The entire escape route is covered. The fleeing Korthax ships reached the edge of the battlefield and engaged their faster-than-light drives. Space began to bend around them as they prepared to jump to safety. Then they hit the mines. Gravity mines were another human innovation. Each one created a small bubble of compressed space-time, invisible to sensors. When a ship tried to engage FTL drives near one, the competing gravitational fields tore the vessel apart at the molecular level. 3 Korthax ships simply ceased to exist. They didn't explode. They just came apart, every atom separated from every other atom in an instant. Where proud warships had been, only expanding clouds of dust remained. No escape, Miller said quietly. They came here to destroy our colonies. They don't get to run away. The remaining Korthax ships stopped trying to flee. They hung in space, weapons still firing, but with less enthusiasm. They knew they were beaten. The only question was whether any of them would survive. Sir, I'm picking up a transmission from their flagship, the communications officer announced. Admiral Zektar is asking for terms. No terms, Miller said. They get no mercy. How many human colonies have they destroyed? How many of our people have they enslaved? Continue the attack. But Davis raised a hand. Captain, maybe we should. Let a few survive. Someone needs to carry the message back to their empire. Miller considered this. Davis was right. Dead enemies couldn't spread fear, and fear was what humanity needed right now. The galaxy had to know that humans were no longer prey. How many ships do they have left? Miller asked. 14, sir. Several are badly damaged. We'll leave one. The rest die. The battle resumed with renewed fury. The Vengeance pressed its attack, using weapons the Korthax had never seen. Particle beams that ignored shields. Missiles that phased in and out of reality to avoid interception. And through it all, more drone swarms, each one guided by Johnson's incredible mind. One by one, the Korthax ships fell. Their crews fought bravely. Miller had to give them that. They maintained discipline even as death closed in. But bravery meant nothing against the technological gap. They were fighting with swords against machine guns. Finally, only 2 ships remained. Admiral Zektar's flagship and 1 escort. Both were damaged, leaking atmosphere and radiation. Their weapons were silent, power systems failing. Cease fire, Miller ordered. The sudden silence felt strange after the chaos of battle. Debris drifted past the viewports. The wreckage of 36 Korthax warships spread across space like a metallic graveyard. It had taken less than 30 minutes. The 2 remaining Korthax ships drifted in space like wounded animals. Admiral Ziktar's flagship had lost half its weapon systems and one of its main engines. The escort vessel was in even worse shape, barely maintaining life support. But they were still dangerous. A wounded predator often fought the hardest. "Admiral, they've stopped firing," Ziktar's tactical officer reported. His voice shook with exhaustion and fear. "The human ship is holding position." "They're toying with us," Ziktar growled. His command throne was scarred from his claws. The proud admiral who had entered the system was gone. In his place sat a creature who had seen his entire understanding of the universe shattered. "Prepare all remaining weapons. If we die fighting." But Miller had no intention of giving them an easy death. On the Vengeance's bridge, he turned to his chief engineer. "Clark, is the phase shift drive ready?" Robert Clark grinned. This was his masterpiece, the technology that would change space warfare forever. "Ready and waiting, Captain. Capacitors at full charge. We can make 10 jumps before needing to recharge." 10 jumps should be more than enough, Miller said. "Let's show them what human engineering can really do." The phase shift drive was beyond alien understanding. It didn't move the ship through space. Instead, it moved the ship through dimensions. For brief moments, the Vengeance could exist in a parallel reality where the laws of physics were slightly different. In that reality, the ship could move instantly to any position within a limited range. Then it would shift back to normal space, peering wherever it wanted. "All hands, prepare for phase shift," Miller announced. "Combat stations remain ready." The Vengeance began to glow with an eerie blue light. Reality seemed to bend around it, as if the ship was only half there. Then it vanished. On the Korthax flagship, alarm screamed. "Contact lost," the sensor officer yelled. "The human ship just disappeared." "Find it," Ziktar roared. "It must be using some kind of advanced cloaking." But the Vengeance wasn't cloaked. It wasn't in their reality at all. In the parallel dimension, Clark watched his instruments carefully. Moving through this space was dangerous. Stay too long, and the ship might not be able to return. The human body wasn't meant to exist in a place where physics worked differently. 10 seconds to return, Clark announced. "Choosing emergence point now." The Vengeance reappeared directly behind the Korthax escort vessel. Its weapons were already locked on target. Before the aliens could react, railguns fired at point-blank range. The escort ship's weakened armor couldn't resist. The shots punched through its reactor core. The explosion lit up space for kilometers in every direction. When it faded, only Ziktar's flagship remained. "How?" the admiral whispered. He had seen many battles, commanded fleets in dozens of victories. But he had never seen anything like this. A ship that could disappear and reappear at will. It was like fighting a ghost. The Vengeance vanished again. This time it appeared above the flagship, then to the side, then below. Each time it fired a few shots, not enough to destroy, but enough to damage. Weapon ports were eliminated. Sensor arrays burned away. The mighty Korthax warship was being taken apart piece by piece. Lieutenant Commander Susan White coordinated the attack patterns from her station. She had spent years studying Korthax ship designs, memorizing every weakness. Now she put that knowledge to use. "Target their secondary command center," she told Martinez. 3 meters left of the hull breach we just created. The next railgun shot was perfect. It destroyed the backup bridge, leaving Ziktar Z's command center as the only control point for the massive ship. If that was destroyed, the vessel would. "Be helpless. Phase jump complete," Clark reported. "Capacitors at 70%. We can maintain this pace." "Good," Miller said. "Continue the attack pattern." I want them to understand how helpless they are, the torment continued. The vengeance appeared and disappeared like a nightmare. Each attack stripped away more of the flagship's ability to fight back. Its proud hull became scarred with burns and breaches. Atmosphere leaked from a dozen wounds. Inside, Korthak's crew members struggled to maintain any kind of defense. We can't track it, the weapons officer cried. By the time we detect it, it's already gone. Zektar said nothing. He sat in his throne and watched his ship die around him. Everything he had believed was wrong. The Korthaks were not the supreme power in the galaxy. They were not untouchable. They were prey, and the humans were the hunters. On the Vengeance, Ensign Amy Johnson recovered from her drone control session. The neural link always left her exhausted, but she wanted to see the end of this battle. She watched the tactical display as her ship danced around the alien flagship. It's almost sad, she said quietly. They don't even understand what's happening to them. That's the point, Davis replied from his station. For 3,000 years, they've been the ones with superior technology. They've forgotten what it feels like to be outmatched. We're reminding them. Another phase jump. This time, the Vengeance appeared directly in front of the flagship. Instead of firing weapons, it launched something else. A cloud of nanobots, each one smaller than a grain of sand. They attached to the Korthak's hull and began to burrow inside. What are those? Lieutenant Daniel Foster asked from his engineering station. Insurance, Clark answered. They'll map the entire ship's internal structure. Every corridor, every system, every weak point. Information we can use for future battles. The nanobots spread through the flagship like a virus. They transmitted data back to the Vengeance, building a complete picture of Korthak's technology. Within minutes, the humans knew more about the alien ship than its own crew did. Captain, I'm reading massive power fluctuations in their main reactor, Foster reported. They're trying to overload it. I think they're planning to self-destruct. Miller's expression hardened. No, they don't get to choose their own death. Clark, can we stop it? The engineer's fingers flew over his controls. The nanobots can interfere with their control systems. Give me 30 seconds. The Vengeance phase jumped again, appearing so close to the flagship that their hulls almost touched. The nanobots received new instructions. They swarmed toward the reactor control systems, disrupting commands, changing parameters. The building overload reversed itself. Reactor stabilized, Clark announced. They can't destroy themselves now. Admiral Zektar slammed his fist against his throne. Even death was being denied to him. The humans controlled everything. His ship, his fate, his honor. All of it was in their hands. Admiral, his communications. Officer said hesitantly, the human captain is hailing us. Put it through, Zektar said. He had to see the face of his conqueror. Miller appeared on the screen. He looked ordinary. No scales or claws or fangs. Just a middle-aged human with gray in his hair and cold eyes. But Zektar recognized what he saw in those eyes. This was a predator. A true predator, more dangerous than anything the Korthaks had ever faced. Admiral Zektar, Miller said, your fleet is destroyed. Your ship is crippled. Your technology has been analyzed and found wanting. Do you understand your situation? Zektar forced himself to sit straight. He still had his pride, even in defeat. I understand, human. You have won. What are your terms? Terms? Miller smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You came here to destroy our colonies. You came to enslave our people. And you want to discuss terms? Then kill us and be done with it. Zektar snarled. No, Miller said simply. Death would be too easy. You're going to live, Admiral. You and what's left of your crew. You're going to return to your empire and tell them what happened here. You're going to explain how one human ship destroyed your entire fleet. The weight of that settled on Zektar like a mountain. To return in defeat, to admit failure. In Korthak's society, it would be worse than death. He would be stripped of rank, of honor, of everything that made him who he was. I see you understand, Miller continued. But that's not all. You're going to carry a message for us. The main screen changed. Instead of Miller's face, it showed a star map. Human space was marked in blue. It seemed so small compared to the vast Korthak's empire. But now Zektar knew that size meant nothing. These are our borders, Miller said. Any Korthak ship that crosses them will be destroyed. No warnings, no negotiations, just death. You can't hold off our entire empire with one ship, Zektar. Saw it, but the words sounded hollow even to him. Miller's smile widened. One ship? Who said anything about one ship? The screen changed again. This time it showed a shipyard. Zektar's breath caught in his throat. Dozens of human warships were under construction. Each one was different, but they all had the same angular, predatory look as the Vengeance. And if each one had similar capabilities to what he had just witnessed, then the Korthak's empire was in mortal danger. We've been building for 50 years, Miller said. Ever since your empire first made contact and demanded our submission. We knew this day would come, so we prepared. What you faced today was one of our older models. The new ones are much more advanced. Zektar felt the last of his certainty crumble. The humans hadn't just defeated his fleet. They had been planning this for decades. Every interaction, every treaty, every moment of apparent weakness had been a lie. The prey had been preparing to become the predator. Captain Miller closed the channel to Admiral Zektar and turned to his communications officer. Lieutenant Foster, open a secure channel to Earth Command. Priority 1 encryption. Daniel Foster's hands moved expertly over his console. The quantum. Encryption would make the signal impossible to intercept or decode. Within moments, the stern face of Admiral Karen Thompson appeared on the main screen. Behind her, the Situation Room at Earth Command buzzed with activity. Captain Miller, Thompson said. Her voice carried the weight of authority earned through decades of service. Status report. Korthak's invasion fleet neutralized, Admiral. 36. Ships destroyed. One survivor has planned. Minimal damage to the Vengeance. We're ready to proceed with Phase 2. Thompson nodded slowly. Excellent work, Captain. The other battle groups report similar success. The Korthaks attacked 7 of our border systems simultaneously. They found human warships waiting at each one. Miller felt satisfaction flow through him. Everything had gone according to plan. 50 years of preparation, of pretending to be weak, of letting the galaxy underestimate humanity. It had all led to this moment. What are our total losses? Miller asked. 0 ships destroyed. The Lightning took moderate damage, but remains combat effective. Total casualties across all engagements. 14 wounded, no deaths. Thompson allowed herself a small smile. The Korthaks lost over 200 ships today. It's the worst military defeat in their recorded history. On his bridge, Miller heard his crew react to the news. Quiet cheers, sighs of relief, a few tears. For the wounded, they had all lost people to alien aggression over the years. Today was the beginning of payback. Admiral, request permission to complete the demonstration, Miller said. The surviving Korthaks need to understand this wasn't luck. Thompson's expression hardened. Permission granted. Show them what humanity is capable of, Captain. Make sure they never forget. The channel closed. Miller turned back to his bridge crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. These men and women had trained for years for this moment. They deserve to see it through to the end. Martinez, charge the main gun, Miller ordered. Let's give Admiral Zektar something to remember us by. Lieutenant Commander Eric Martinez cracked his knuckles and got to work. The Alcubierre cannon was humanity's masterpiece, a weapon that should have been impossible. It had taken 20 years just to build a working prototype. The version mounted on the Vengeance was the 5th generation, refined and perfected. Captain, I should mention something, Chief Engineer Clark said. Firing the cannon will drain 70% of our remaining power. We'll be vulnerable for several minutes while the singularities recharge. Understood, Miller said. But I think our Korthax friend is too broken to take advantage. Begin the charging sequence. The Vengeance began to change. Its angular hull split open along hidden seams. Massive capacitors emerged from protected housings. The ship's nose elongated, revealing a barrel that seemed to bend space around it. Energy coursed through the vessel like blood through veins, all of it flowing toward the weapon. On the crippled Korthax flagship, panic spread like wildfire. Admiral, the human ship is deploying some kind of weapon. The sensor officer screamed. Energy readings are off the scale. I've never seen anything like this. Zektar stared at his displays in growing horror. The power signatures made no sense. They suggested the humans were channeling energies that should have torn their ship apart. But the Vengeance remained stable, its weapon continuing to charge. All remaining weapons, fire everything we have, Zektar ordered. But he knew it was useless. His ship was too damaged, too crippled. The few weapons that still functioned couldn't even scratch the human vessel's armor. Miller watched the pathetic barrage splash harmlessly against the Vengeance's hull. He felt no satisfaction in crushing such a broken enemy. But this wasn't about the single Korthax ship. This was about sending a message to the entire galaxy. Weapon charged, Martinez reported. Target locked. Awaiting your order, Captain. Lieutenant White, are you recording everything? Miller asked. Susan White nodded from her station. Full spectrum recording, sir. Every angle, every energy reading. The galaxy will see exactly what we're capable of. Miller took a breath. History would remember this moment. The day humanity announced itself as a true power in the galaxy. No more hiding, no more pretending. No more letting alien empires push them around. Pick your targets carefully, Miller said. I want a demonstration, not genocide. Show them precision. Martinez smiled grimly. Already selected, sir. 3 derelict hulks from the battle, arranged in a perfect line. The shot will pass through all 3 and terminate in that asteroid field beyond. Fire. The Alcubierre cannon spoke with the voice of a god, but it didn't fire energy or projectiles. Instead, it fired space itself. A wave of compressed reality erupted from the weapon, distorting everything in its path. Stars seemed to bend. Light twisted into impossible angles. The fabric of the universe rippled like water. The 3 derelict Korthax ships simply ceased to exist. They didn't explode or break apart. They were just gone, erased at the quantum level. Every atom scattered. Across dimensions, never to reform. Where proud warships had been, only perfect spheres of absolute emptiness remained. The wave continued past the vanished ships, racing toward the asteroid field. When it hit, kilometers of rock and metal underwent the same fate. They dissolved into nothingness, leaving a perfectly circular hole in the field. The edges of the hole were smooth as glass, cut at the subatomic level, and the weapon fell silent. The Vengeance's hull closed back up, hiding the terrible gun. The ship looked normal again, just another ugly human vessel. But everyone who had witnessed the shot would never forget what lay beneath that angular hull. Admiral Zektar couldn't speak. His mind refused to process what he had just seen. Weapons that destroyed matter at the quantum level were theoretical, the stuff of scientific speculation. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible. But the humans had done it. They had built the impossible. "Admiral," his science officer whispered, "if they have more ships with weapons like that, ... He didn't need to finish. Zek-Tar. Understood. The Korthax Empire's entire fleet, every ship they had built in 3,000 years, would be helpless against such weapons. Shields couldn't stop something that erased space itself. Armor meant nothing when atoms could be scattered across dimensions. The communication screen activated again. Miller's face appeared, calm and cold. "Do you understand now, Admiral? That was a fraction of our capabilities. We have weapons you can't imagine, defenses you can't breach, technologies you can't comprehend, and we're done hiding them. What do you want?" Zek-Tar asked. His voice sounded broken, defeated. "I told you. Carry our message. But to make sure you remember it clearly, let me give you." Admiral Zek-Tar sat in his damaged command throne, staring at the empty space where the human fleet had been. His bridge crew worked in silence, making what repairs they could. No one spoke about what they had witnessed. There were no words in their language for such a complete reversal of power. "Admiral," his communications officer finally said, "Commander Keksar is requesting permission to come aboard. He says his ship's life support is failing." "Grant permission," Zek-Tar said. His voice sounded hollow, drained of its usual authority. "Have medical teams standing by." As evacuation shuttles moved between the crippled ships, Zek-Tar tried to process the magnitude of their defeat. In 3,000 years of recorded history, the Korthax had never lost a fleet engagement. They had never faced an enemy with superior technology. They had never been the ones begging for mercy. Commander Keksar arrived on the bridge an hour later. The younger Korthax officer still had fight in his eyes, but Zek-Tar could see the cracks in his confidence. Seeing an entire fleet turn to debris had that effect. "Admiral, what are your orders?" Keksar asked. "Should we call for more reinforcements? And watch them die too?" Zek-Tar shook his head. "No, we follow the humans' instructions. We leave their space and carry their message back to the Empire. You would accept defeat?" Keksar's scales flushed with anger. "The Korthax do not run from inferior species." Zek-Tar stood slowly, his full height towering over the commander. "Inferior? Did you not see what just happened? One human ship destroyed 36 of our finest vessels. Their weapons ignore our shields. Their armor laughs at our plasma cannons. They can disappear, can reappear at will. They have a fleet of hundreds, each one capable of erasing matter from existence. Tell me, Commander, which species is inferior?" Keksar's anger faded, replaced by uncertainty. "But the Empire... What will they say?" "They will say we are fools for underestimating the humans," Zek-Tar replied. "Or they will say we are lying, that no such weapons could exist. Either way, we must try to make them understand. The age of Korthax dominance is ending. On the edge of human space." The U's Vengeance dropped out of phase shift and rejoined the rest of Battle Group 7. Captain Miller stood before the main viewport, watching the other ships take formation around his vessel. Each one represented years of secret construction, of resources diverted from public projects, of humanity preparing for this day. "Incoming transmission from the Retribution, sir," Foster announced. "Captain Shun wishes to speak with you." The screen activated, showing Captain Lisa Chun of the U.E.S. Retribution. She was younger than Miller, but her eyes held the same hardness. Every human captain had lost someone to alien aggression. It was part of what drove them. "Excellent work, John," Chun said. "My engagement went similarly. The Selthari Empire is down 40 ships and reconsidering their expansion plans. Any casualties? Miller asked. 3 wounded on the Defiance when a lucky shot breached their auxiliary bridge. Nothing serious. The new armor held up perfectly. Chun's expression grew thoughtful. Do you think it will work? Will fear be enough to keep them away? Miller considered the question. Humanity had revealed its strength today, but the galaxy was vast. There were dozens of aggressive species, each one convinced of its own superiority. Would one day of defeats be enough to change millennia of behavior? For some, yes, he said finally. The smart ones will understand the message. The stupid ones, well, we'll deal with them when they come. When, not if? When, Miller confirmed. There's always someone who thinks they're different, special, powerful enough to succeed where others failed. We need to be ready. Chun nodded. The shipyards are already increasing production. The Council approved funding for 50 more ships. By next year, we'll have over 300 vessels in service. It was an impressive number, but Miller knew it might not be enough. The galaxy was vast, and humanity was still just one species, among many. They had won today through surprise and superior technology. But surprise only worked once, and other species would try to copy their innovations. Captain, Davis interrupted, long-range sensors are picking up multiple FTL signatures. It looks like news of the battles is spreading. Several alien fleets are changing course, moving away from human space. Good, Miller said. The message is getting through. He turned back to Chun. Have your astrogation officer plot a course for the Kepler shipyards. We're due for upgrades, and I want to see the new weapons they've developed. The reality bombs? Sean's eyes lit up. I've heard rumors, but nothing concrete. More than rumors. They've successfully tested a device that creates localized tears. In space-time, anything caught in the effect gets shredded across multiple dimensions. Miller smiled grimly. Just one more reminder that humans don't do things halfway. After ending the conversation with Chun, Miller called a meeting of his senior staff. They gathered in the conference room, exhausted but exhilarated. They had trained for this moment for years, and it had gone perfectly. First, congratulations to all of you, Miller began. Today, we made history. The galaxy now knows that humanity is not to be trifled with, but this is just the beginning. What's our next move, Captain? Lieutenant White asked. We return to Earth for debriefing and repairs. After that, we'll likely be assigned to Border Patrol. The real test comes now, maintaining the fear we've created today. Sir, Martinez spoke up, what about species that haven't attacked us? The peaceful ones? It was a good question. Miller had thought about it often. Humanity's display of power would terrify everyone, not just their enemies. Earth Command is already working on that, Miller said. Diplomatic teams will reach out. To peaceful species, assure them we have no aggressive intentions. We'll offer trade, cultural exchange, even mutual defense treaties. The goal is to isolate the aggressive empires while building alliances with those who share our values. Speak softly and carry a big stick, Davis quoted. Exactly. We've shown the stick. Now we need to show we can speak softly too. Back on the crippled Korthax flagship, repairs continued slowly. The human nanobots had done their job too well, disrupting systems in ways the crew didn't fully understand. It would take days just to get the main engines working again. Admiral Zektar used the time to prepare his report. Every detail had to be perfect. The Imperial Council would demand answers, explanations for how the mighty Korthax fleet had been so thoroughly defeated. He included sensor data, video recordings, energy readings, anything that might make them believe. Admiral, his science officer approached hesitantly. I've been analyzing the battle data. There's something you should see. The officer brought up a holographic display showing energy readings from the Vengeance during combat. The numbers were staggering, but that wasn't what caught Zektar's attention. It was the efficiency. The human ship had used only a fraction of its available power. They were holding back, the science officer said quietly. Based on these readings, that ship could have destroyed our entire fleet in under a minute if they'd used full power. They deliberately prolonged the battle. To make a point, Zektar understood. To show they could toy with us. To maximize the psychological impact. There's more, sir. The phase shift technology they used? Our theoretical physicists say should be impossible. The energy requirements, the gravitational stresses. No known material could withstand them. But the humans did it anyway. Zektar felt a chill run down his spine. If humans could build the impossible, what else were they capable of? What other technologies had they developed in secret? Include all of this in the report, he ordered. The Council needs to understand. We didn't just lose a battle. We encountered a species that has surpassed us technologically. And they did. It in less than a century. Days later, the repaired Korthak ships limped back to their space. They were met by a massive fleet, hundreds of warships ready to avenge their defeat. But Zektar's report spread quickly through the command structure. The sensor data was analyzed and reanalyzed. The video of ships being erased from existence played on repeat. Slowly, the war fervor died. Even the most aggressive Korthak's commanders understood the implications. They could send 1,000 ships into human space, and it wouldn't matter. The humans had weapons that defied understanding, defenses that couldn't be breached, and the will to use both. The Imperial Council convened. In emergency session. For 7 days they debated, argued, and raged. Some called for total war, others for immediate peace negotiations. In the end, pragmatism won. The Korthak's empire officially recognized human borders and recalled all ships from the region. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The Selthari Empire, the Vegan Confederacy, the Draknari Hegemony, all of them had lost fleets to human defenders. All of them had received the same message. Leave us alone or be destroyed. Some species took longer to accept the new reality. The Vrak, always aggressive and slow to learn, sent 3 more fleets to test human defenses. None returned. The Melody tried to sneak past the borders using their advanced stealth technology. They discovered that human sensors could detect things they couldn't even imagine. Within 6 months, human space became the most respected border in the galaxy. No one crossed it without permission. Trade ships waited patiently at designated checkpoints. Diplomatic vessels announced themselves well in advance. The message: